Hello and welcome to Easy English Podcast Daily, a place where learning English becomes simple, practical, and enjoyable. If you are learning English and you sometimes feel nervous when speaking, you are in the right place. Maybe you understand English when you watch a video, listen to a podcast, or read something online. But when someone suddenly asks you a question in English, you may think, "Oh no, what should I say?" You know the words, but they don't come quickly. Or perhaps you are afraid of making mistakes. Maybe you worry about your pronunciation. Maybe you compare yourself with people who speak English fluently and think, "I will never speak like them." If you have ever felt this way, don't worry. You are not alone, and more importantly, you can improve. In today's episode, we are going to talk about something that is extremely important for every English learner: how to build confidence in English and speak without fear. We will learn useful vocabulary, natural expressions, and practical ideas that you can use in your everyday English. Some words will be simple, while others will challenge you with more advanced English. So don't worry if you don't understand every word immediately. Listen carefully, try to understand the meaning from the context, and when you hear an important word, pause the episode and repeat it aloud. Remember, you don't need perfect English to communicate, you need enough confidence to start. So take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin. Let's start with a simple question. Why are so many English learners afraid to speak? There are many reasons. The first reason is the fear of making mistakes. Imagine that you are talking to someone in English. You want to say, "I went to the market yesterday." But suddenly you start thinking, is it "I go to the market yesterday"? Should I use went? What if my grammar is wrong? While you are thinking about grammar, the conversation continues. And then you become silent. This happens to many learners, but here is something important. Making mistakes is a normal part of learning a language. Think about a child learning their first language. A child doesn't study grammar rules before saying their first sentence. They listen, they copy, they experiment, they make mistakes, and they try again. Language learning works in a similar way for adults. You need to experiment with English. The word experiment means to try something in order to discover what happens. For example, I'm experimenting with different ways of learning English. Another useful word is hesitate. To hesitate means to pause because you are uncertain or nervous about what to do or say. For example, she hesitated before answering the question. If you frequently hesitate while speaking English, don't feel ashamed. Instead, ask yourself, why am I hesitating? Perhaps you are trying to create a perfect sentence, and that is one of the biggest problems. Many learners believe, I should speak perfect English, but perfection is not the goal. Communication is the goal. If someone understands what you mean, you have successfully communicated. You don't need to speak like a university professor. You don't need an enormous vocabulary. You need useful words, clear pronunciation, and the confidence to use them. Here is another important idea. Many people think, first I need confidence, then I will start speaking. But it usually works the other way around. You speak first and confidence develops afterwards. Think about riding a bicycle. When you first learn to ride, you may feel nervous, you may lose your balance, you may fall. But you don't become confident by sitting on the bicycle and thinking about riding. You become confident by actually riding. English is similar. You cannot develop speaking confidence without speaking. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. You may make mistakes, you may forget words, you may speak slowly. That's completely fine. With regular practice, your brain gradually becomes more comfortable with English. The word gradually is useful. Gradually means slowly, little by little. For example, her English improved gradually. You don't need to become fluent in 1 week. You don't need to learn 100 words every day. Instead, focus on consistency. Consistency means doing something regularly over a period of time. 10 minutes of English every day can be more beneficial than studying for 3 hours once a month. Let's repeat that idea. Small steps repeated consistently can produce remarkable results. The word remarkable means unusually good, impressive, or noticeable. For example, she has made remarkable progress in English. Now let's discuss another common problem. Translation. When you speak English, do you first create a sentence in your mother tongue and then translate it into English? If you do this, you may find speaking difficult. For example, someone asks, "What did you do yesterday?" You think in your first language, then you search for the English words, then you arrange the grammar, then you check whether your sentence is correct. By the time you are ready to answer, the other person may already be waiting for you. This process can make speaking slow and stressful. So what can you do? Start thinking in small English sentences. You don't need to think about complicated ideas. Start with simple thoughts. When you wake up, think, "I'm tired, it's raining, I need coffee, I have work today, I need to finish this task." When you are cooking, think, "The water is boiling, the vegetables are ready, I need some salt." When you are traveling, think, "I'm waiting for the bus, the traffic is heavy, I'm almost there." These sentences may look extremely simple, but they train your brain to connect your thoughts directly with English. Over time, this process becomes more natural, and eventually you won't need to translate every sentence. Now let's talk about vocabulary. Many English learners have notebooks filled with hundreds or even thousands of words, but when they speak, they can't remember them. Why? Because they learn the words passively. They recognize the word when they saw it, but they didn't actually use it. There is a difference between recognizing a word and actively using a word. Let's take the word overwhelmed. Overwhelmed means feeling that something is too difficult or too much to deal with. For example, "I have so much work that I feel overwhelmed." Now don't simply memorize the definition. Create your own sentence. Maybe, "I feel overwhelmed when I have too many things to do." Say it aloud, repeat it. Use it tomorrow, use it next week. That is how vocabulary becomes active. Here's another useful word, reluctant. Reluctant means unwilling or hesitant to do something. For example, "At first, I was reluctant to speak English with strangers." Now create your own sentence. I was reluctant to. Pause here for a moment and complete the sentence yourself. Maybe you could say, "I was reluctant to speak in front of my classmates." Excellent. Now try another word, persistent. Persistent means continuing to try even when something is difficult. For example, "She was persistent, so she eventually improved her English." This is an excellent word for language learners, because successful learners are not necessarily the people who are naturally talented. They are often the people who are persistent. Another misconception is that you need thousands and thousands of complicated words before you can speak English. You don't. Imagine that you know 5,000 words but you are too nervous to speak. Now imagine someone who knows only 1,500 words but confidently communicates with other people. Who is more effective? The second person. Vocabulary is important, but usable vocabulary is more important. You need words and expressions that you can actually use. For example, "I agree, I don't agree, I'm not sure, could you explain that, could you say that again, what do you mean, that's a good point, I see what you mean, I'm not completely convinced, from my perspective, in my opinion." These expressions are incredibly useful. Let's practice a few. Repeat after me. "Could you say that again, please?" Again, "Could you say that again, please?" Next, "I'm not completely sure what you mean." Again, "I'm not completely sure what you mean." And one more. "From my perspective, that's a good idea." Excellent. These expressions can help you keep a conversation going even when you don't know every word. Now imagine you are speaking English and suddenly you forget a word. What should you do? Don't panic, this is extremely important. You don't have to stop the conversation. You can paraphrase. Paraphrase means explaining an idea using different words because you don't know or don't remember the exact word. For example, suppose you forget the word umbrella. You could say, "It's the thing we use when it rains." The listener will probably understand. Or perhaps you forget the word pharmacy. You could say, "It's a place where you buy medicine." You are still communicating. This is actually an advanced communication skill. Fluent speakers don't always know every word either. They explain, they describe, they give examples. They use different expressions. So instead of thinking, "I forgot the word, I'm terrible at English," think, "I forgot the word, how can I explain it another way?" That small change in mindset can make a huge difference. Let's talk about the word mindset. Your mindset is the way you think about something. If you have a negative mindset, you might say, "My English is terrible. I always make mistakes. I will never be fluent. Other people are better than me." These thoughts can damage your confidence. Instead, try changing your internal dialogue. Don't say, "My English is terrible." Say, "I'm still improving my English." Don't say, "I always make mistakes." Say, "I'm learning from my mistakes." Don't say, "I can't speak English." Say, "I can't speak English fluently yet." That little word "yet" is powerful. I can't do it yet. It means you cannot do something now, but you believe you can learn to do it in the future. Your current level is not your final level. Maybe today you are at bone level. That doesn't mean you will always be at bone. With practice you can move towards beatwo, then cone, and perhaps even seatwo. Progress takes time, but it is possible. Now let's create a practical routine. You don't need 5 hours every day. Let's imagine you have just 30 minutes. You can divide those 30 minutes into 4 activities. First, listening for 10 minutes. Listen to an English podcast, interview, story, or video. Don't worry if you don't understand every word. Focus on the general meaning. Second, speaking for 10 minutes. Talk to yourself, describe your day, explain what you are doing, talk about your plans. For example, today I woke up at 7, I had breakfast, then I started working. In the evening I'm going to study English. It may feel strange at first, but it works. Third, vocabulary for 5 minutes. Choose 3 to 5 useful words. Don't choose 20. Choose a small number and actually use them. Fourth, review for 5 minutes. Look back at what you learned. Repeat the words, repeat the sentences. Try to remember them without looking. This routine is simple, but if you follow it consistently, you can make significant progress. There is another important issue that many learners face: comparison. You watch someone speaking fluent English online and think, "Why can't I speak like that?" But you don't know how long they have been learning. You don't know how much they practice. You don't know their background. You are comparing your chapter 1 with someone else's chapter 20. That is unfair to yourself. Instead of comparing yourself with other people, compare yourself with your past self. Ask yourself, can I understand more English than I could 6 months ago? Can I speak more comfortably? Do I know more vocabulary? Is my pronunciation clearer? Can I understand videos more easily? If the answer is yes, you are progressing. Even small improvements matter. Maybe 6 months ago you could speak for 1 minute, now you can speak for 5 minutes, that's progress. Maybe you used to be afraid to speak to strangers, now you can have a short conversation. That's progress. Never underestimate small improvements. Now let's talk about moving from intermediate English towards advanced English. At bone level, you might say, "I think learning English is important because it helps people communicate." That's perfectly good. But as you progress, you can make your language more precise and sophisticated. For example, "I believe learning English is valuable because it enables people to communicate more effectively across different cultures." Notice the difference. We didn't simply add complicated words. We made the sentence more precise. Here are some useful advanced words and expressions. Enable, to make something possible. English enables people to communicate internationally. Effective, successful in producing the desired result. Regular speaking practice is an effective way to improve fluency. Significant, important, or noticeable. She has made significant progress. Beneficial, helpful, or useful. Reading regularly is beneficial for vocabulary development. Acquire, to gain or learn something. Children acquire language naturally through interaction. Enhance, to improve something. Reading can enhance your vocabulary. Maintain, to continue something at the same level. It's important to maintain a regular study routine. Overcome, to successfully deal with a difficulty. She overcame her fear of speaking English. Approach, a way of dealing with something. Everyone has a different approach to language learning. These words can help you express yourself with greater precision. But remember, don't use advanced words simply to sound intelligent. Use them when they genuinely communicate your meaning better. Now we're going to do a short speaking exercise. I'll give you a question. Pause the podcast and answer it aloud in English. Ready? Here is your question. Why are you learning English? Pause now. Think about your answer. You could say, "I'm learning English because I want to communicate with people from different countries." Or, "I'm learning English because it can help me develop my career." Or, "I want to become more confident when speaking English." Now let's make the answer more advanced. You could say, I am learning English because I believe it will broaden my opportunities, both personally and professionally. The word broaden means to expand or increase. For example, traveling can broaden your understanding of different cultures. Now another question. What is the biggest challenge you face when learning English? Pause, answer aloud. Maybe your answer is, my biggest challenge is speaking. Or, I struggle with pronunciation. Or, I find it difficult to remember new vocabulary. Now let's make it more advanced. One of my biggest challenges is maintaining fluency during spontaneous conversations. Spontaneous means happening naturally without preparation. That's a useful advanced word. Let's return to one of the most important ideas from today's episode, consistency. You don't have to study English perfectly, you just have to keep going. There will be days when you feel motivated. There will also be days when you don't. That's normal. Motivation is temporary. Discipline and consistency are more reliable. Maybe you study for 30 minutes today. Tomorrow you only have 10 minutes. That's okay, do what you can. The important thing is to continue. If you make a mistake, continue. If you forget a word, continue. If you have a bad day, continue. If you feel embarrassed, continue. Every time you use English, you are giving your brain another opportunity to learn. And slowly, something changes. The words become easier to remember, your sentences become faster, your pronunciation becomes clearer, your confidence becomes stronger, and one day you suddenly realize, wait a minute, I'm actually speaking English. That moment is wonderful. Before we finish today's episode, I want to give you a small challenge. For the next 7 days, speak English aloud for at least 10 minutes every day. You can speak about anything. Your daily routine, your family, your studies, your job, your future plans, a film you watched, a book you read, a place you want to visit, your favorite food. It doesn't matter, just speak. And remember these 5 rules. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for communication. Don't be afraid of mistakes. Mistakes show that you are trying. Don't translate every sentence. Start thinking in simple English. Don't memorize vocabulary without using it. Use new words in your own sentences, and be consistent. A little practice every day can create remarkable progress over time. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Easy English Podcast Daily. Today, we talked about how to build confidence in English and speak without fear. We learned that confidence doesn't usually come before speaking. Confidence develops through speaking. We also learned that mistakes are not evidence of failure. They are evidence that you are learning. We talked about thinking in English, building active vocabulary, paraphrasing when you forget a word, developing a positive mindset, and practicing consistently. And remember some of today's useful vocabulary: gradually, consistency, remarkable, overwhelmed, reluctant, persistent, paraphrase, mindset, enable, enhance, significant, beneficial, acquire, overcome, and spontaneous. Don't try to memorize all of them at once. Choose 3 or 4, write them down. Create your own sentences, and use them in your daily conversations. If you enjoyed this episode, keep listening to Easy English Podcast Daily. Our goal is simple: to help you listen better, speak more confidently, expand your vocabulary, and gradually move towards more natural and fluent English. If you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Easy English Podcast Daily for more English learning content. And tell us in the comments, what is the biggest challenge you face when learning English? If you have any questions about today's topic, feel free to share them too. I'd love to hear from you, so don't wait until your English is perfect. Start with the English you have today, speak, make mistakes, learn, try again, and keep going. Because every sentence you speak brings you one step closer to fluency. Thank you so much for listening to Easy English Podcast Daily. Take care, keep practicing, and remember, your English doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to keep improving. See you in the next episode. Bye for now.